Everyone has the same fantasy about the iPhone Fold. We imagine it will be this magical, perfect device that solves every problem and makes Samsung look like an amateur. But the latest leaks from the supply chain are painting a very different picture. It looks like Apple is about to release a phone defined not by its features, but by its compromises. We're looking at a September 2026 launch, assuming they don't delay it again, but the device we are getting might be the most controversial product Tim Cook has ever signed off on. Let's start with the biggest shock to the system: the screen size. For years, we have been trained that Pro means big. But Apple is reportedly throwing that out the window. The outer screen on the iPhone Fold is leaked to be just 5.3 inches. To put that in perspective, that is smaller than the iPhone 13 mini. It is tiny. This isn't a compromise you just get used to. This is a complete paradigm shift. If you're used to typing comfortably on a 6.7-inch Pro Max, this outer screen is going to feel like a toy. Apple is essentially forcing you to unfold the phone for almost everything. The outer screen isn't a full phone experience. It's a notification window. It's a viewfinder. It is a deliberate design choice to make the device pocketable, sure, but it comes at the cost of usability. Are you ready to go back to 2013 screen sizes in 2026? Then, there is the biometric compromise. We have spent nearly a decade perfecting Face ID. It is seamless, it is secure, it is the Apple standard. But the iPhone Fold? It won't have it, according to the leaks. The device is too thin to house the dot projector and sensor array needed for Face ID. So, Apple is stripping it out. We are reverting to Touch ID embedded in the power button. Now, I know some of you love Touch ID, but let's be objective here. On a $2,000 future phone, losing the most advanced facial recognition system on the planet feels like a step backward. It is a hardware limitation dictating the experience, which is un-Apple-like. And speaking of thickness, this is where the irony really hits. You would think that sacrificing Face ID would mean we are getting the thinnest phone ever made, right? Wrong. The leaks point to a 4.8mm thickness when open. That sounds thin, until you look at the competition. Samsung and Honor are already pushing devices under 4mm. Apple is arriving late to the party, and somehow, they're arriving thicker than the guys who have been here for years. Why? Because of the battery. Apple is refusing to use the newer, riskier silicon-carbon batteries that allow for ultra-thin designs. They're sticking with traditional lithium-ion encased in metal. It is a safety compromise. They are terrified of a Note 7 explosion situation, so they are making the phone chunkier to play it safe. Let's talk about the hinge. This is the one place where they aren't compromising on cost, but they might be compromising on the release date. They are using liquid metal, a titanium alloy that is notoriously difficult to work with. Miswa Securities reports that this specific component is a nightmare to manufacture. It is so complex that it is currently the single reason the phone might slip to 2027. So the trade-off here is time. Apple is chasing the perfect zero-crease hinge, but the cost of that perfection is making us wait while the rest of the world moves on to trifold phones. And finally, the most painful compromise of all: the ecosystem gap. The leaks suggest support for the Apple Pencil, which is great news for creatives. But there is no slot for it. Samsung learned this lesson the hard way years ago, and they still struggle with it. If you don't put the pen inside the phone, nobody uses the pen. Apple knows this. They fixed it on the iPad Pro with magnetic charging. But on a folding iPhone, there is no room for magnets and no room for a slot. It is a half-baked feature support. So, here is the reality of the iPhone Fold 2026. It is a device with a screen that might be too small for power users, a chassis that is thicker than the competition, missing the biometric security we rely on, and possibly launching a year late. This doesn't mean it will be a bad phone. It will probably be beautifully built, and the software will be smooth. But it is not the no-compromise superphone we dreamed of. It is a collection of very difficult engineering trade-offs. The question is, are you okay with those trade-offs? Are you willing to give up Face ID and a big cover screen just to have an Apple logo on a foldable? I want to know your honest take. Is a 5.3-inch screen a deal breaker? Or do you miss small phones? And does the lack of Face ID bother you? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to stay updated on whether Apple fixes these issues before launch, make sure you hit subscribe. We are tracking every single leak until this thing is in our hands. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.